This evening's episode is entitled Advantages of a Private Trust. Now, I'm going over a document, all right? So, usually y'all know how I do. What I will do is I will send this out to anyone who sends an email in to admin@welcometothefoundation.com. And you don't even have to say anything. You can just put in the subject, just type in, document from the show, and then put the date, so I know exactly what document you're talking about. If, disclaimer, if you are in my private trustee training, this document is in the folder with all the other documents that are available to you. You should have access to that. And if you are on the email list, or you think you're on the email list, you want to make sure you want to go to welcometothefoundation.com and make sure that you're on the email list, because I will also send it out to all the email subscribers. Cool? So, advantages of a private trust. I wax poetic about doing business privately, about the proper administration of trust, the specific designation of trust, the laws and jurisprudence with regards to the administration and enforcement of trust. So I'm going to get into, some heavy advantages. But first, I want to go through a couple of primers. And most of y'all know this, but this is for, those who may come across the show in the future through the archives, those who may be new callers, those who may be new listeners. So just bear with me. I'm going to run through it quick. We got to understand the difference between public and private, more specifically when it comes to entities doing business. I stay in this specific niche. Like I said, I wax poetic. So there are public entities that owe their existence to legislation. If there's a state seal on it, if you had to file it at the Secretary of State, if there's a state seal on the original document, either birth certificate or whatever, it is a state-created entity. You're dealing with dual jurisdiction because there's state and federal jurisdictions. The states create their entities. The feds tax them with regards to the use of Federal Reserve notes. All right? So those entities that owe their existence to legislation, those are called public entities with regards to doing business in the public. Those entities that do not owe their existence to state legislation or federal legislation are what we understand, in our circles, to be private entities. Those entities that don't owe their existence to public legislation or any type of positive law, but are still recognized to do business within the United States, within the federal jurisdiction. So public versus private when it comes to doing business and when it comes to the entity. Excuse me. So with that being said, when I'm talking about trust, please believe every time I say anything about trust, understand my name is So L, Seeker of Truth L, Speaker of Truth L, and 9 times out of 10, the designation is a private trust, and the entity that owes its existence not by way of legislation. Now, when you're dealing with a state-created entity or a public entity, you must understand that that entity is created for the benefit of the public or the state or the federal government. So making all this noise about privacy and being sovereign and all this other stuff, when you're generating income and titling assets in the name of an individual, corporation, LLC, public trust, or anything like that, to me is oxymoronic, rudimentary. The benefits of these entities primarily are directed towards the public. Therefore, there's legislation, and the legislation governs the entity, the administration, the reporting, the tax, all that stuff. Now, the key is to create an entity that is recognized to do business in the United States but does not owe its existence to the United States. The easiest way to do that is through a trust contract. All right? Guardian, Gardian, TND Company versus Fisher, 26 SCT 186 at 188, or Brady versus U.S., 397 U.S. 742 at 748. A citizen is under no obligation to do any particular thing. A citizen's failure to act creates no liability. But if a citizen voluntarily attempts to act and do the particular thing, the citizen comes under implied obligation in respect to the manner in which the citizen does it. Waivers of constitutionally protected rights not only must be voluntary, but must be knowingly intelligent acts done with sufficient awareness of relevant circumstances and consequences. So, what does that mean? You're not under any obligation to do anything. You're not under any obligation to do anything. What am I talking about? You're not under any obligation to attempt to get a job, to get a credit card, to take out any loans, to try to open a bank account, none of that stuff. You're not under any obligation. You may feel you're obligated due to the nature of the commercial system that is before you. Now, if you attempt to do a particular thing, you come under implied obligation in respect to the manner in which you try to do it. Okay? So basically what that means is if you attempt to do business privately, but you don't, an attempt is a try, and whether you do or do not, whether you do or do not operate privately, whether you do or do not have the proper trust indenture, whether you do or do not have the proper administrative procedures, whether you do or do not have the proper mentorship, you're going to fall under the implied obligation in respect to the manner in which the citizen does it. Not how you tried, but how you do it. It's not about the attempt. It's about how it's done. And I like the Supreme Court because they're very specific with their words, and I love specificity when it comes to communication, especially with this English language because it's weird. And it's not the language of my ancestors. So you can try to be private. You can try to do business privately. You can try to, operate a trust. It doesn't mean you're doing it. But you fall under the obligation of operation with respect to the manner, with respect to the intent. So if you're operating a business, you're operating a trust, you're working a W-2 job. That's the obligation. If you submitted a Social Security number when you became employed, there's really no cause to be hemming and hawing when it comes to taxation. Social Security number is the reporting number identifier for the individual. The individual files an individual tax return. That's a 1040. That is requirements. There is a long, thick instruction manual when it comes to the 1040, the individual tax return. But we all know what we're trying to do. We're trying to do this privately, right? So in doing it privately, we got to understand some fundamentals. Let me finish up this primer real quick. Trust is a contract between two or more parties, natural or juristic. So a trust is a contract. So if you're hearing the word trust, you got to understand within the definition of trust, the definition of a trust is a contract between two or more parties. we also need to understand, because I just know, I feel, and I also know, that people don't understand what this is. So what is a trust? A trust is a special type of legal relationship. Black's Law Dictionary defines a trust as a right of property held by one party for the benefit of another. Most importantly, a trust is a confidence that one person places in another person. So basically, the confidence of one person, a grantor or trustor, is placing into the trustee for the benefit of a third person, the beneficiary. With respect to property, the trustee holds for the benefit of the beneficiary. This is a typical PAT, P-A-T, capital P-A-T, acronym for principal, agent, and third-party arrangement, a PAT arrangement, a P-A-T arrangement. It is for this reason that a fiduciary relationship exists, because the trustee owes fiduciary duties to the beneficiary. A fiduciary, in this instance a trustee, is one who is in a special position of trust, confidence, or responsibility to do things for others, the beneficiaries. So understand, as a trustee, you want to be a trustee, you want to do business privately, you're doing business for others. Bottom line, who are the beneficiaries? The heirs. What do they hold that's most important? Hopefully, the last name. So the trust is on behalf of the family. That is the nexus. That is the circle center. Is the family trust. Last two primers, the basis for the terminology. Common law. Y'all know there's common federal law? Common federal law is judge-made law as defined by the courts, which consists of those principles, usages, and rules of action applicable to government and security of persons and property which do not rest for their authority upon express the declaration of the will of legislature made law. You can check that out in Bishop versus D.C. Tex, T-E-X, 334, F as in Frank, Super or Sup 15,418. As mandated by the United States Supreme Court in the United States versus Merchant of U.S. 480-12, Wheat 480, 6L as in Larry, ED 700, the courts of the United States are bound to recognize and enforce the common law. So what is federal common law? Federal judgment laws, precedent. Supreme Court rulings and citations. Specifically, the basis for the terminology, which we understand, common law trust. In this connection is not that this trust is a creature of the common law as distinguished from equity, but that this business trust or trust is created under the common law of contracts and does not depend upon any statute of the state. That's in Brown versus Donald, 216 SW 2D679, and Collin versus Payne, 137 WASH, Washington, short for Washington, 566-243, P as in Paul 247, P as in Paul 46746, Apple Larry Robert 165. That was long. I might have to rewind that. Schumann Hank versus Folsom 328. Looks like a Roman number 3. 321 159. Nancy Edward Albert Larry Robert 485. It is held that a trust must have an economic realty and or business interest. IRS Regulation 301.7701-4B states there are other arrangements, which are often known as business or commercial trusts, which normally would have been carried on through business organizations that are classified as corporations or partnerships, unless, if applying the principles set forth in sections 301.7701-2 and 301.7701-3, the organization more nearly resembles an association or partnership than a trust. Section 301.7701-A1 clarifies the characteristics of corporations. It states there are a number of major characteristics ordinarily found in a pure corporation, which, taken together, distinguish it from other organizations. These are associates, an objective to carry on a business and divide the gains therefrom, continuity of life, centralization of management, liability for corporate debts limited to corporate property, and free transferability of interest. The remainder of the section says that the organization must more nearly resemble a corporation than a partnership or trust. And that's IRS Revenue Ruling 75-258 and Morrissey et al. Versus Commissioner 296 U.S. 344. You got to be sure that your trust seeks no privileges or benefits from any government or government agency, does not have associates, has been created for an ongoing business, expires after an arranged length of time, deliberately has centralized management in the form of independent trustee, is totally liable to debts, and under no circumstances allows free transferability of interest. You want to make sure that your trust has less than the 6 characteristics and not a preponderance of those characteristics, and is certainly not a partnership or corporate statutory trust, but a separate lawful entity having its existence under common law. All right, so let's get into it. Ooh, time's flying. My bad. So we got a notice. I want to read this notice. And you want to put this notice when you're dealing with the public in your, schedule or something like that, whatever, being trusted your hand into the, the public. Notice is hereby given to all persons, companies, or corporations extending credit to, contracting with, or having claims against the trust or the trustees thereof, that they must look only to the funds and property of the trust for payment or settlement of any debts, tort, damage, or judgment, or decree, or any indebtedness which may become payable hereunder, that the trustees, officers, or agents are merely independent contractors and not personally liable when dealing with the trust properties or matters. All right, real quick. A trust is created when a person decides to create a trust. That is very, very important. A trust isn't created when you write it down. A trust is created when you decide to create a trust, when you make the decision in your mind. A lot of people have a problem understanding this concept. But you don't have to write down a trust for it to be created. You have to write it down for it to be evidence to the public or evidence to other individuals in the private. The grantor draws up the trust indenture or the declaration of trust, which sets forth the desires as to what the trust will do and who will benefit. Trust documents will identify who will be the trustees to manage the trust. After the trust is drawn up, the grantor gives the property to the trustee to hold. The property is called the trust corpus. The trust is then in existence and begins to operate. Trust corpus. So we understand what the corpus is. It's the property. That's why, when you pass, when you leave this earth, and they're like, oh, they did an autopsy on your corpse. Because, while we're here, this physical vessel is our property. If you think that you are the physical best vessel, I don't know. I get smart with people that ask me where I live, and I say inside my body. But, as a spiritual being here in trust, your trust corpus is your vessel that you use to traverse this plane. And in so is the idea behind trust itself. Let me get into the trust as a separate entity. A trust is treated as a separate entity for tax purposes. All money earned by the trust is taxed to the trust unless it is distributed to beneficiaries and then at their tax percentage. The tax deduction taken by the trust can only benefit the trust, no one else. The single most important advantage of creating a separate entity for tax purposes is to achieve income tax advantages. A trust is treated as a separate entity for liability purposes in most states. When a trust enters into a contract with someone and the trust breaches the contract, the only person that can be sued is not the officers, trustees, or beneficiaries. The only property or money the suing party can get is the property held in the name of the trust. This is called limited liability. When a grantor places property in trust irrevocable, the property is beyond the reach of creditors. Check that out. So moving on, let me get into protecting the trust privacy. A trust is private. It is designed to be private. To ensure that privacy, the trustees must not release information about the trust or the trusters to anyone without the express, unanimous approval of all the trustees in accordance with the trust indenture. When there is a delay in holding a regular meeting of the trustees, there is a delay in giving permission for the release of information. That cannot be avoided. However, because this is a very important part of the trust and cannot be violated by the trustee. Should a bank, title company, or any other third party ask a trustee to expose the records of the trust, the first thing the trustee should say is, "I'm sorry, the records are confidential. If you be kind enough to submit a request in writing, it will be brought before the Board of Trustees for approval at the next regular meeting. No records can be released from the trust without the approval of the Board of Trustees. If you are dealing with any government agency, it is best to say nothing. Instead, politely indicate that you will talk to your attorney and will get back to them. Say nothing more. In your haste to cooperate, you may say something that is not entirely accurate, which could be used against you in a court of law. The law is very complicated, and you should not try to explain anything to a government agency without the assistance of an attorney." That's very important, and I recommend that as well. Unless you understand trust law, contract law, and then even statutory principles that are attempted to be applied to your trust when it comes to any type of adjudication, I would definitely get with an attorney who's competent to understand what's going on. You can say anything, get you in some serious trouble. It's always best to allow an attorney or an accountant to review the records on your behalf with the government agency, so all will be presented in clear and precise manner, and that is most advantageous for you. Trust indenture, if it's a good one, it obligates you not to release any information without the approval of the trustee. If it's not, I apologize. But that ain't coming from me. All right, real quick, let me get through this. Moving forward to adversity. A lot of people have a misunderstanding or don't really understand what adverse or the word adverse trustee or adverse party means. It's a very important trustee position. If the actions by the trustee are not approved by an adverse trustee, there's a risk the trust will be considered a grantor type trust. You don't want that. Because if it's that, it'll be taxable to the grantor or the creator, or whoever they say. Therefore, it's important that the trust have an adverse trustee. This is one who owns some units of the beneficial interest in the trust and will be adversely affected by the exercise or non-exercise of power which they possess in respect to the trust. So, another trustee possibly, a beneficiary, anyone who has a contract with the trust who would be adversely affected by the exercise or non-exercise of power with regards to the trust. So, that's definitely important. I want to touch on this. This is important, I believe. When it comes to insurance, ordinarily the insured owns their life insurance policies. It means the policies in, the name of the person insured or the policy owner. One of the biggest estate tax advantages is to transfer the ownership of the life insurance policy out of his or her name and into the name of the trust. This is not difficult. The owner merely contacts the issuing insurance company indicating that he or she wants to transfer the policy into the name of the trust. In transferring a life insurance policy into the trust, it is important the premiums be paid by the trust, not by the insured. Payments for fire, auto, or the like types of insurance are ordinary and necessary expenses of the trust if they are to protect and preserve the property of the trust or the trust corpus. That's important. All right, so what's ordinary expenses? Ordinary expenses, bottom line, what you save, what is actually in the contract indenture itself. The most common expense is ordinary expenses. I'm going to get into a couple of them. Business expenses, they don't include work you do for an employer. It means a business that you have separate, apart from your everyday salaried employment, if any. There are thousands of possible business ventures you may be engaged in, if you're dealing with a business trust. Whenever you have an expense where money of the trust is used to pay expenses for the business or with respect to the actions of the business trust, it's called a business expense, or more specifically, a trust expense. If you have more than one business trust, be sure that you write down the expense on your trust expense sheet with the business trust that is being used. Let's get into some expenses. What are some of the advantages of a private trust? You got expenses, money going out of the trust. These are expenses. Two grand divisions of expenses. One is called ordinary expense. The other is called capital expense. The type of expense you will most often occur is ordinary expense. It involves spending money to build something that is intended to last long or purchase something that will last a long time. A capital expense. Two common examples are buying a house, purchasing furniture or equipment, or the making improvements to the house or the building. Another expense is an advance. An advance is the use of any money from the trust account or any other money for the trust for any expense that may be in advance. Auto expense. Any vehicle owned or leased by the trust will have expenses. All expenses in running, repairing, and maintaining those vehicles are called expenses for trust purposes. Any expense whatsoever that has anything to do with the vehicles in the trust is called expenses. So if it's titled in the trust name, I don't care what, it's all a write-off. Beneficiary distributions, that's a deduction. Beneficiary distribution is the distribution of money to a beneficiary. That is, when the trustees decide according to the terms of the trust indenture, it is wise to distribute money for the use of the beneficiaries. It only includes those amounts which are actually and formally approved as distribution. If it is necessary to make a beneficiary distribution, which you should, Be sure to take the simple but formal steps necessary for the trustee to approve and record it in the trust minutes. And most indentures commonly is going to say that already. Consulting fees, 100% expense. I am a private consultant. When I do business privately, some people ask me to invoice them for my consulting fees. Others don't ask for the invoice. Either way, any fees with regards to dealing with me, whether it's a business, corporately, or a business trust, I really hope you are expensing my fees. Charitable contributions, that's an expense. It's a great expense if you have a private family foundation. Credit card payments. If your trust has a credit card, you must be very careful to use it only for trust business. If your trust uses a credit card, you must save the credit slips to indicate the nature of the purchase. To be extra safe, keep both the credit card slips and the monthly statement. House expenses. What is the housing expense? That is, any mortgage payments, purchase the house, or any rental payments made to rent a house constitutes housing expense of the trust. House insurance will be included under the category of insurance. Installment payments are payments made for the purchase of an item which must be paid periodically over a long period of time. Do not include credit card payments and installment payments. Insurance, no matter what except medical and dental. That's in your business trust. You can do medical and dental in your family trust because that falls under one of the main requirements of the trustee is health care. Certain types of insurance are fully deductible, such as insurance in connection with the trade or business. We're talking about a business trust. Some other types of insurance are auto, homeowners, and life, provided the trust is the beneficiary. Interest paid, one of the advantages, it's an expense. Medical and dental, when a trust money is paid out for medical expense item, it is called a medical expense. There's a prior year distribution, although it's a very complex category. I won't get into that. Repair and maintenance, any money paid for the repair and maintenance of the trust property comes under repair and maintenance. Any addition or improvements to the property of a permanent nature would come under the capital expense, where maintenance means take care of. Therefore, maintenance expense is any expense necessary proper for taking care of a trust property. Rental expense. Rental property is property the trust owned that is rented. Any reasonable and necessary expense paid for the rental property is rental expense. Taxes and property taxes. When you pay money to the federal, state, and county governments for taxes, that is designated as taxes. When you write out a check to pay the taxes, put down exactly what it was for. When you pay taxes, you usually have some kind of a statement or a bill from the government that will tell you what kind of tax you're paying. If you are paying property taxes on property which is owned by the business trust or any trust, the tax is an expense and should be placed on the sheet pertaining to that particular expense. Similarly, if you pay a tax on a rental property, that tax is an expense which should be placed on the tax expense sheet dealing with the rental property. Telephone and utilities, those are expenses for the trust, especially if they're connected to the business trust, family trust, so on and so forth. Trust supplies, the ordinary necessary supplies purchased for the trust and the administration of the trust are the trust expense. Everything necessary for caretakers or managers to carry out the functions to preserve, maintain, and care for the trust constitutes the trust expense. Food and any other expense for personal enjoyment or personal use by the trust is also a trust expense while doing trust business, as long as you're in your indenture. Travel, those are necessary to the trust, are deductible items. You got to go to certain places, so on and so forth. You got to get a hotel. You went to see someone speak. The travel, that can fall under education. It can fall under a number of things. And then real quick, when it comes to trustee liability protection, the first source of code or law to review in regard to the liability of trustees is the California Probate Code. Specifically, Probate Code sections 15001 and 15002, which state, except as otherwise provided by statute, this division applies to all trusts regardless of whether they were created before, on, or after July 1st, 1987. And except to the extent that the common law rules governing trusts are modified by statute, the common law as to trusts is the law of this state. The common law is the case law of a state as opposed to its statutory law counterpart, as is evident from section 15002. Case law will apply except to the extent it has been modified in any way by statute. There are a few other statutes which have been modified by case law, or which will be applicable in all circumstances. The first of which is the Probate Code section 16011, which basically says that the trustees have a duty to take all reasonable steps to defend actions that may result in a loss to the trust. This is a fairly self-explanatory remark and doesn't really connect to trustee liability. It does specify that trustees have a duty to defend any such action that may result in a loss to the trust. There are other specific code sections which do not touch on the liability of trustees to third persons. The first is section 18000 of the Probate Code, on personal liability of the trustee to third persons on contracts. A, unless otherwise provided in the contract or in this chapter, a trustee is not personally liable on a contract, property, entered into the trustee's fiduciary capacity in the course of administration of the trust, unless the trustee fails to reveal the trustee's representative capacity or identify the trust in the contract. The trustees avoid any possibility of liability by making sure that when it enters into any contract, actual or implied, the trust specifies that the trust is party to the contract and the trustees are acting in their fiduciary capacity as trustees on behalf of the trust. For background information, this changes the prior case law in California, which stated a trustee was personally liable on contract unless the contract stipulated that the trustee was not liable. The cases in California setting forth this prior law are Hall versus Jameson, which is 151 CAL 606,611-612, Duncan versus Dormer, 94 CAL APP 218221, and Purdy versus Bank of America, 2 CAL 2D 298301-302. With all of the foregoing in mind, it is important to also be aware of subparagraph B of section 18,000 of Probate Code, which states the personal liability of a trustee on contract entered into before July 1st, 1987 is governed prior by law and not by this section. Thus, the case law rule governing a trustee's personal liability pre-operative date contracts has been preserved by Probate Code section 18000B. So for any contract entered into by a trust before July 1st, 1987, the case law is applicable, and the trustees will be personally liable on contract unless the contract stipulates that the trustees were not liable. To reinforce the foregoing is a quote from the section 25.01 of Trust Administration and Taxation, Nassernan and Wyatt. As a general rule, under the common law of trust, the trustee is personally liable on contracts made on behalf of the trust. This rule has been revised in California by its trust law, effective July 1st, 1987, providing now that a trustee is not personally liable under contract properly entered fiduciary capacity of trustee in the course of administering the trust unless the trustee fails to either reveal representative capacity or identify the trust in the contract. Code 18001, personal liability of a trustee arising from ownership or control of a trust estate. A trustee is personally liable for obligation arising from ownership or control of a trust property only if the trustee is personally at fault. It means you're outside of your fiduciary responsibility. A trustee is personally at fault when the trustee either intentionally or negligently acts or fails to act. 18002, personal liability of trustee for torts. Trustee is personally liable for torts committed in the course of administration of the estate only if the trustee is personally at fault. In this particular area of law, trustee is personally at fault when the trustee commits either a tort intentionally or negligently. Section 18004 of the California Probate Code indicates that any kind of an action against the trust has to be brought against the trustee in the trustee's capacity as trustee. This section reads as follows. A claim based on contract entered into by a trustee in the trustee's representative capacity on an obligation arising from ownership or control of the trust property or on tort committed in the course of administration of the trust may be asserted against the trust by proceeding against the trustee in the trustee's representative capacity, whether or not the trustee is personally liable in the claim. California Probate Code Section 15685, which provides that the trustee has an equitable lien on all trust property as against the beneficiary for liabilities sustained in the administration of the trust or because of ownership or control of any trust property, and California Probate Code Section 16011, which basically specifies that the trustee has a duty to take reasonable steps to defend actions that may result in a loss of the trust. So basically, the trustee is a real party in interest with respect to the trust. Hence, litigation against the trust necessarily involves naming the trustee as a party. The trustee may be subject to liability for contracts on behalf of the trust when a contract was entered into before July 1st, 1987, unless it is stated in the contract there is to be no personal liability of the trustee. When a contract is entered into on or after July 1st, 1987, the contract fails to specify the trust is a party, or the contract fails to reveal the trustee's representative capacity. Regarding the tort situation as was set forth in California Probate Code Section 18002, the trustee is generally liable for torts committed by himself or herself. Probate Code Section 18001 states the trustee can be subjected to liability when he or she is the holder of title to trust property, but only when the trustee is personally at fault for the injury or damages. So you got to be on the property and California specifies that the trustee who held mere title was not liable for negligence in maintenance of the building where the beneficiary controlled the operation and maintenance of the trust property, or another trust, or like some sort of management company or something like that. And, I mean, the California Probate Code is something to definitely study and read, check out. There are a lot of different sources that you're going to come across when you are studying trust. And I suggest that you take advantage of all of them. We got about 7 minutes left in the broadcast. I would like to say peace and thanks to everyone who's checked out the broadcast thus far. I trust that you were able to gain or glean some of the information, pick up what I was putting down. When it comes to the advantage of the trust and some of the specificity with regards to terms, the legal terms used when discussing the nature and administration of trusts. The advantages are many, the liabilities are few, obviously, unless you're doing something negligent or a deliberate act of assault or something like that, which would include, if you're drinking and driving, even if the vehicle is owned by the trust, and you're drinking and driving, you're crashing into somebody, you'll still be sued privately in your private capacity, in your individual capacity, because that would be considered negligent. You're acting negligent in your fiduciary capacity. You're not supposed to be operating the trust property inebriated or under any type of influence. that can be tort. I mean, if you own nothing, control anything, I don't know where the judgment's going to attach to. We got 5 minutes left in the broadcast. I'm going to go to the phone lines, do some question and answer. If you got any questions, please push 1 on your keypad. It will put you in the queue. I will bring you in. I do not receive calls. Say what you want, say what you need, say what you feel. Oh, I'm sorry, I just had to drink that water. I was thirsty. 424-222-5250. Once again, 424-222-5250. About half minutes. The show will start streaming. And if you're listening online or in any other way, you will be disconnected. And you will have to listen to the archived version. I hope y'all stuck with me. I was moving kind of quickly. Time flew by. I feel like time's been flying by these past few, episodes. So I appreciate y'all sticking with me. I'm going to go to the phone lines quickly. I don't want to go too far over today. First caller, let's take it. 615-4078. Area code 615-4078. Peace. Which name were you calling from? Six 4078. Hit your mute button. It might be muted. You must have hit one by accident. Next caller, 804-4038. What's up with these 4 zeros? 804-4038. Peace. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Peace, brother. So this is Brother Robert from Virginia.
Hey, brother, how you doing?
Pretty good, brother. Pretty good. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm blessed. I can't complain. Thank you. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I wanted to see if you could put some more emphasis on. You read the California probate code, and so did you pick California for a specific reason? I mean, should each person look in their individual state? Could you expound on that?
Well, I chose California because California is the only state that I'm aware of at this current position in my studies that directly distinguishes its code from common law. And it says that. And it actually says that, the trees are liable unless it says in the contract that they're not liable. So, it's the California probate code says a lot, and that's why I wanted to, touch on that. But I mean, you should definitely check with each state. But more specifically, you're going to come under jurisdiction of the state, usually only with regards to an action, some sort of, action brought against the trust or the trustee. So in that regard, the distinctions of liability determined by the contract, indenture, and so versus the actual code saying what it is, I think is important. And the trust that we deal with, the trustees deal with in the private, that I deal with, they're protected from probate. It's just I found this terminology, I found this specificity with regards to the distinctions between, contract and statute in the California probate code.
Okay, got you.
I mean,
okay, so they may be unique in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, every state's going to have a probate code. I haven't really seen too many states probate code get so specific like California's. Like I said, the trusts that I administer are not gonna deal with, state probate matters, just due to the nature of the indenture itself. Because I mean, one of the main protections of doing business privately through trust is the protection from probate, the protection from death tax, protection from inheritance tax, the protection from creditors, the protection from litigation, and so on and so forth. What I'm talking about, liabilities of trustees, I'm more often than not talking about, the administration of a business trust, something, the entity, even though it's private, it's interfacing with the public, and it's going to have subsequent contracts with the public, which may bring it under, specific jurisdiction, because one of the actors within the contract is a public figure, or, a debtor, or, an individual, or an LLC, or something like that. So it just speaks to the liability. And, that's why I tell people, especially, trustees that are in, my private training, that, I wouldn't recommend trying to build business credit on your business trust. Because when it goes through underwriting and it goes to the, the legal department, those people are going to know what the type of entity is and what the liabilities are or not. And more often than not, if you don't have any, if the trust doesn't have assets, can securitize through some sort of contract, then they're not likely to extend credit like they would, a public corporation or LLC, that has no assets, but, it falls under, public legislative authority or state legislative authority, because, that creditor, potential creditor, would have more remedial access with regards to a state entity versus a contract trust that's properly, written, properly drawn up.
Right. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, brother. Well, I appreciate it. I don't want to hold up the line. Let the next caller get in.
No problem. My pleasure. Appreciate you calling in, man. Thank you. And forward to talking to you soon, man. Peace.
Okay, peace. Thanks.
All right, I'm gonna try this 615 one more time. So 078. Peace, you there? Push 1. 615 or 078. Your mic's broken. 718-8092. What's the deal?
Hey, so how you doing?
Hey, Daryl P.
Can you
Man,
hear
how
me?
you doing? Yes, sir.
I'm all right. How's everything?
Oh, man, everything's well, I can't complain, man. How's everything going with you? How's life? How's the fam?
It's going all right. I got the little one. I got him. I had him for a few days. But now, okay, you have the public, which is I guess social, and the public probably could be the EIN number 2. But when it comes time for that, can an EIN number be public too instead of private? Is that possible?
Well, I mean, no matter what, an EIN is a public number. It's issued by a public authority or, the Internal Revenue Service, which is, a branch of the government. So, the number itself is going to be public. It just depends on what type of entity that number was issued to, whether or not that entity is public or private. Or how
so that would basically be when it comes time to the EIN, can a social be private? Can a social be private, or is no way a social can be private?
No, a social can not be private. No.
Okay, so the only way that basically maybe that EIN number can be kind of private under the 1041 or the S4 or the 8832? Or can all three of them, or maybe like any of the three things I messed with, like the S4, the 8832, and which one? The 8832, the S4, and the 1041. Would that make it private or not necessarily?
Using SS4 to obtain an EIN. The 8832 is for a public corporation. So that's not private.
Okay.
Okay, what was the other thing you said? S4, 8832, and what?
And the 1041.
The 1041 is a federal return, so it's a public return. But depending on what type of trust it is, whether it's a private trust or a public trust, it can either be public or private return. So like how we use in the private, the return's private. So
okay, all right. Okay.
Right.
Well, else for everything is all right,
The only return that maintains privacy, the only public return, in my opinion, is the 1041, and that's it. 1041 is the only private return.
And the only way to get be classified in that 1041, there is under EIN, or can a social do a 1041, or only an EIN can do a 1041?
Yeah, only an EIN that was issued to a trust can do a 1041.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Al. It's always a pleasure talking.
Likewise.
You when you coming down this way? When you coming down this way again?
If I do, it's going to be the end of the year. I'm still working on this this event in Oakland, California.
When is that taking place?
I'm still working on the date.
Okay, hopefully I can make it out there. That'd be nice to be out there.
We're aiming for September, but
okay. Is it going to be a one-day event or 2 days? You're not sure? Okay, no problem.
Probably just 1 day.
Okay, all right. Well, so Al, peace and love to you and all the callers out there. I'm gonna let you take the next caller, and I'll be talking to you next week. Hey, so Al, me and my sister don't live under the same roof. I don't know if she told you that, but me and her don't stay under the same roof. That's why, you only hear from me like on this day,
Okay. No, I mean, I didn't assume that you did, but that's good to know,
you
man.
didn't assume that we did? Okay,
no,
yeah,
I didn't.
me and her don't stay under the same roof. Yeah. So that's why, I choose to, during this day to, I get, something more that lets me know something else, because that, I know that's my sister, so, I don't know what she spoke to you about, but that's why I choose to remain on this day till something else takes place, and let me know something else,
Absolutely.
All right. So.
All right,
okay,
family.
so listen, all right, peace now.
Peace, family. Love.
All right, peace, family. Love you. Okay.
Somebody sent me an email talking about y'all never be letting callers come in. I feel like there'll be callers lower down. So let me go down here. See, there's one. They were right. You were right. Not even lying. I keep it real. No shame. 501-6281. 501-6281. Peace. What's your name? Where you calling from? No? No 501? No? Okay. Not putting in an effort. I know my guy Coppertone Bay is in the house. Peace, family. How you doing?
It's all grand. You know what I'm saying? Live and direct. Reporting live from Planet, Birmingham, Alabama. You know what I'm saying? You know what it is. It's your brother, you know what I'm saying? Copper Tone, super conductor. You know what I'm saying? Amongst the greatest. You know what I'm saying? It's another one. So I appreciate that. You dropped a lot of jewels, brother. You know what I'm saying? The importance of, you know what I'm saying, the advantages or the opportunities we could take upon, you know what I'm saying, of the benefits of a trust, you know what I'm saying, and whatnot. So truly beautiful, brother. You know what I'm saying? How everything on your end looking down there?
Oh, man. Everything is, I have no complaints, man. Everything is great. None whatsoever.
Grand.
How about you?
Grand, man. If I can, I might take a trip out and try to see if I can get out there to California, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be a good experience. You know what I'm saying? Definitely, maybe I can be able to get myself in a proper position right now where I can be able to wipe that thing off. You know what I'm saying? Really take some advantage. You know what I'm saying? So I need to actually. I'm looking over some things. I need to actually get some intellectual property together. You know what I'm saying? I need to definitely some assistance. You know what I'm saying? Doing that. So you know what I'm saying? With that being said, I need to step up on my competency. You know what I'm saying? So I show to them. I'm definitely, you know what I'm saying, to prove and show that what I didn't learn and soaked up in the door. You know what I'm saying? Contribute to the foundation. You know what I'm saying? Doing my due diligence and actually being, you know what I'm saying, humble and respectful to the information, applying it, and also respecting my own divine position. You know what I'm saying? My government. You know what I'm saying? So if we charter for the board, so just wanted to let the family know. So always get into the position where you can be able to get in controllership. You know what I'm saying? Because for one, you can't do business with another man's name, and you want to actually leave your imprint here. You know what I'm saying? Now one that's manufactured, you know what I'm saying, duplicate or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? Unless you're gonna duplicate the manufacturer from your own energy, but that's what it is. It's not fun. It ain't cool being shouted. We don't want to be shouted. You know what I'm saying? Properly or none. You know what I'm saying? So let's properly justify that in every aspect. You know what I'm saying? So it's truly beautiful. You know what I'm saying? So you know what I'm saying? What we bring here, what's established, what we're a part of. You know what I'm saying? Just give honor and give thanks. You know what that is. I definitely got some things I'm ready to do. I'm ready to go ahead and move forward to the next level with that brick foundation. So with that being said, man, I'm on a max transit. There's a bit distortion in the back. I'm gonna have to deal. Real time. You know what I'm saying? Real life. You know what I'm saying? Gotta get some results. So either way, however it goes, you gotta get some results. So man, what it is. So you know what I'm saying? You travel safe out there where you at. You know what I'm saying? You travel through those deep waters and whatnot. And we'll definitely link up. Peace to the family out there. Peace to the God. You know what I'm saying? It's your brother. I'm out.
Appreciate you, family, man. Peace, man. Have a great one. Love you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
See.
I appreciate that brother. That brother listens to me every single time, every week, on his way home from work, man. That's dedication, man. That's love. And that's it. I want to say thank you for checking out the show. I appreciate you. I appreciate the long-term listeners, the long-time listeners since day one, and those who heard one show or something has been listening ever since. Those who come in and out, I appreciate you too. Those who don't have time, I appreciate you too. It's all love. And no matter how much you get out of the foundation, as long as you get something, I'm very happy. With that being said, I want to say thank you again to to all the listeners, I want to say big up and thank you to Big Brother Yusufel. I want to say peace to Sister Yvette for helping with the current events. And I want to say love. When it comes to operating properly, there's a lot of ways to do it incorrectly. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things. There's a lot of people talking about private and this and that and this and that. And it's hard to get your mind wrapped around what's really real. And hopefully, you know, myself, So L, and the foundation here on High Frequency Radio helps to dispel some of, or a lot of, you know, the misconceptions, the parts, the mist, and helps you, you know, come to a better understanding, connect some dots, and understand exactly or better what's going on when it comes to commercial activity. With that being said, welcome to thefoundation.com. Sign up for the email list, schedule a consultation, make a donation, get your read on. And until next week, I appreciate you. I love you. Oh, and I'm probably going to be doing some type of giveaway in the next couple of weeks. There's going to be something kind of cool. So it's like a private package, plus, you know, going to the next event or something like that. But be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, man, love y'all. Take care of yourself. Enjoy yourself. And work hard on yourself. Do better. Don't be lazy like everybody else. Have a good week. Thank you. And peace to the God.
Doing this thing all the way live. High Frequency Radio.